No attention to the man behind
I'm like,
the curtain.
Hill normally has a bigger
he's trying to get a
booming
point
voice
in
at
before he
this
gets
point.
on.
I'm
You're
sorry.
fine. Yeah, he was in traffic and he didn't get to eat, so.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Start over.
We're back on. Okay.
November 17th, Planning Commission meeting. Welcome, everyone. We've got a couple public hearings tonight. Thank you. I can hear my voice. And we have everybody here except for one commissioner. Angie Grant is absent. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
So moved by John, supported by Barry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. And the first thing, we have public hearing, item number A, special approval plan 6110, 2022. Location is 27055 Orchard Lake Road. Also 28696 Oakland Drive, excuse me. The proposal is a temporary concrete crusher and batch plant in an RA2 one-family residential district. Action requested is special land use and site plan approval. Applicant is Connor Lennington and Dan's Excavation, Inc., and the owners are Oakland Community College. Is the proponent here to kind of describe the request that's before the public tonight? And if you would come forward up to the lectern and introduce yourself and your address. Welcome.
My name is Eric Rowell. I'm with Dan's Excavating. Connor submitted the paperwork for us, but we have the 696 reconstruct project with MDOT through Farmington Hills and Southfield. And we would like to set a recycled concrete crusher operation up at Oakland Community College. Can answer any questions that you might have about it, but we have about 175,000 tons of concrete to remove from the roadway starting in the spring of '23. And that equates to about 7,000 truckloads of material that needs to leave the site. To set up at the community college site, we could not go on public roads, and we could haul with off-road trucks through our job site onto the Oakland Community College property and crush there and then reuse on the site.
Okay. Questions for the gentleman? John?
What are you doing with, after you crush the concrete? What are you doing with it? Hauling it off-site or reusing it?
The concrete that gets crushed will get reincorporated back into the project.
Okay. And what about when you take out the bridges? Inkster, Farmington, Middle Belt?
Any concrete that's part of any of the demo operations would go through that crusher and be reincorporated back.
But you'll use the same, so you'll go north to 12 Mile and then come in?
No, we would stay on in our closed project. So the idea behind having this location is we would put it in off-road trucks, haul trucks that wouldn't go on the public roads. We would put it on our off-road trucks and traverse only through our site, access through MDOT's right-of-way onto the college property, crush it, and then haul it back onto the site through the same route.
Okay. Kristen?
That answered my question.
Okay. Barry?
I thought I saw someplace that this is going to be from January 1st of 2023 to January 1st of 2024?
Yeah, I mean, our construction will start in March. We'll have some prep work to do on site, but we really can't start our road work until March. So we just kind of picked like a year time frame. I don't think the crusher would show up until frost laws come off, but we would start to pile concrete in there in March. We put the January in there because pending approval and soil erosion permits and everything in place, we could go strip the land, get silt fence installed, start to build our driveway and be ready to go in March when the job starts.
Well, I'm more concerned about when you end, in that when your plant comes down, in whenever that might be. Obviously not going to be January 1st, 2024, because you'll cut out before the freeze dates. Just want to make sure that when you're done, that the batch plant's gone and all the piles are gone on the property, so it's just flat again.
Yeah, I understand. Our agreement with the community college is that the site is returned to its existing state when we leave the site. So they actually are, they're in agreement with this. They don't want to maintain that area anymore. They've actually asked us to put like some prairie grasses or some, they want it to be like a no-mow area when we're done.
Okay, well, right now, we have a batch plant someplace else in the city, and they took the tower down, but they left the mounds, and they were supposed to clear it out by October 31st. And we'll make sure that if this thing does pass, that you will be done by January 1st, 2024, and that everything is gone.
Yeah, no, and I understand, and I mean, that's what the college wants to. They don't want to know we were there when we're done, so.
Okay. Jack?
Are you the project manager?
I will be the project manager, yes.
Have you gotten the letter from the fire marshal saying there's supposed to be a meeting between you and the fire chief and the fire marshal?
I have not yet.
Okay.
It could be in MDOT's hands right now, I don't know, I mean, MDOT's job,
It's
so.
particularly due to you because the fire department wants access to 696 through your site. And when they have the inevitable accidents, they're going to be out there. You're familiar with that? Well,
Well, certainly, yeah. I mean, so there'll be a communication from the fire department. You'll
Yeah.
have to work out the details in terms of emergency
That's right.
access. Any other questions to the planning commission? Now we're going to go over to staff before we open the public hearing. I would be interested in an aerial that perhaps could describe where it's going to be and the traffic on and off 696.
right there.
Yeah, this one
For
depicts
the public on the overhead screen. Joe, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, so we're looking at the east end, northern half of the Oakland Community College site. As you were just discussing, they requested a time frame of the first of next year to the first of the following year. And the requested hours of operation were 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday. This part of Oakland Community College was largely a parking lot until just about a year ago. They took out a lot of the parking area and restored the area to grass. It does have RA2 zoning. That's what the community college campus is zoned. When we look around at adjacent areas, obviously 696 is to the north. You have exit ramps to the east, and far on the other side of those, you have some neighborhoods. And then to the south, that's where the closest residential is. There's a neighborhood in there, and then a small college of psychology is also to the south. And then to the west, once you get through the OCC campus, there's a church and a park across Farmington Road. The site, of course, is accessible from Orchard Lake Road and Farmington Road. This actual facility is planned to be accessed from 696, and then traffic goes back on to 696 from it. So the circulation is really kind of, a stem with a loop at the end. They haven't provided any setback distances on their plans. The setbacks of the district are definitely met. If you measure to the south property line, it's over 500 feet from where their southernmost equipment is going to be to the south property line of OCC. They haven't noted a parking area for employees. The application has a value of 0 in the space asking for the proposed number of employees. And it states that parking will change daily, and that parking will occur wherever possible in the affected area. So I would just like some clarification on what all that means. I'd just like the applicant to discuss, how the site will be staffed, and how potential park conflicts within the site between, parking areas and circulation are going to be managed. Parking on the larger OCC site is not affected by this plant. They're not proposing any lighting for the site. Landscaping and trees, you know, they're not proposing any landscaping, and they're not taking out any trees within the site. They're gonna have to take a couple out for their passage over to 696. Those trees are on OCC and MDOT property though, so they're not really within our jurisdiction to ask them to be replaced, you know, per our ordinance. And like I said, it's a small number of trees in the tree line along 696 that are gonna be taken out. One thing that we don't have is any diagrams or images of the proposed equipment, any indication of what the height of the equipment is. They do have some notes in their application about the location of fuel storage, which is something we typically ask about. So I would like to know a little bit more about the equipment, how tall it is, you know, what its actual visual profile might be. We do have some conditions for special approval of this kind of use, which I've put in the letter. And if you have any questions about any of those, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
So, Joe, are you looking for, yes, I will get to you. Well, I just got to make a comment. So are you looking for the proponent to revise his plan and submit it to you, or do you want to hear, you asked about the building height, setback issues, is it adequate here in this forum?
Well, I mean, ultimately, that's up to you, whether or not you're comfortable with the information that's been presented tonight. I think it would be helpful for us to have on file
Okay,
some information about the height and appearance of the equipment, so that we're able to, you know, go over there if someone has a complaint or something and see that they're using the equipment that they were actually approved to use.
so noted
over
for our
there.
meeting tonight, so we're going to need an updated plan that shows what the consultant wants. Joe, you had a question?
Yes, my question is, as you point out, they're not subject to our tree replacement because the property is either OCC and the state, well, the colleges are exempt from our jurisdiction almost, and so's the MDOT property. Why are they here?
I'm going to defer to,
That'll be a question for the city attorney.
I mean, they're not conducting this operation as part of the school operation.
right.
So they can cut down the trees if they want. But this particular operation needs your approval because it's not accessory to or part of the principal use. It's a good location, but they need your approval.
I thought it was a good question.
It's a great question.
It was a great question.
Great answer.
Yeah.
Good question.
So I have a question for the proponent. In terms of, I see the ingress egress, how is that going to be controlled with the decel ramp onto Orchard Lake Road and the traffic? What are we going to see? No traffic or?
Oh, as
Like
far
the
as
proponent.
the ramp the exit ramp at Orchard Lake Road will be staged construction.
Okay,
But, you know, this is about the midpoint of the project, so there's, you know, a lot of roadway further to the west that doesn't cross that, but you are absolutely right. There will be truck traffic crossing the Orchard Lake off-ramp. Eastbound traffic will come from the westbound roadway through the crossover and exit at Orchard Lake Road when that ramp is open, but our construction traffic will be crossing that ramp.
very good. John?
This is just the eastbound we're talking about, correct?
Correct.
So that's 1 year.
Yes.
So coming back the following year, you're going to do the westbound lane.
Yes, the MDOT contract would be westbound in 2024.
And that contract has been let and you've won that?
It's all in the same contract.
Same contract?
Yep.
And you said March to what, November?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
This question, March through November. March through November?
March through November, both in 23 for eastbound and in 24 for westbound.
Good.
But this primary focus for this site is for the eastbound
Right.
construction because of accessibility.
But you won't be able to use that for the westbound, will you?
We, right now, don't have a way into the college that the college is in agreement with to use that site for outside of next year. If we can come up with an access, then we might, try, but it doesn't really work for the concrete removal.
We'd like to replicate the same thing on the north side, though.
Yeah, if there was a vacant piece of land on the north side, we'd be happy with that. But I think next year we'll be using the ramps at Orchard Lake. Some of the ramps are closed, and we can use those vacant areas.
Are you totally shutting down the Orchard Lake 696? I mean, all directions? So you can't?
No, the eastbound exit ramp will stay open, and the eastbound entrance ramp will stay open. There's stage construction. There'll be short windows of closures, but they are primarily open.
Okay.
The circle ramp will be closed.
Okay. Barry?
I guess Joe's question is how tall is the batch plant itself?
So the batch plant, the tallest object that we're going to be looking at out there is the temporary piles, the piles of raw concrete and the piles of crushed product. We'll have stacking conveyors, so those piles will be taller than the equipment, but they're ever changing. We'll be hauling out of them and adding to them. The equipment itself, the crusher, the crushing plant itself is 25 feet tall. The stackers, obviously, to put the material up in a pile are going to be 70 feet tall. The batch plant is 55.
So I guess the question for Joe is that okay? 75 foot is the max, and that would be on the mounds, and 55 on the batch, on the mixing plant, and 25 for the crushing plant.
The footprint of the crusher is 25 feet tall.
Okay, so I don't think it's necessarily a question for Joe. I mean, it's a question for us in the special approval. So we'll need the plan, we'll have to identify the heights.
Sure.
Also, Joe indicated you have to clarify the parking.
Yeah,
So
this
it's
operation is,
going to be haphazard or kind of organized in terms of where you're going to park folks?
it's like 5 to 7 guys to run this plant.
Okay. Maybe you could show on the plan at least an area where people are going to 5 or 7 guys will.
Yeah, they can park
Guys,
out on the
gals will
closed
park.
freeway if we have to, but we can designate a parking area on the plan.
Okay, good. Joe, I'm hearing that you said there's no light illumination required or anything, no lighting. You said no lighting plan.
They're not proposing any lighting on the site, no.
Okay. So we'll get a revised plan. Any other questions from the commission before I open up the public hearing? Thank you, sir. Now, this is the public hearing. Anybody interested to address the commission on this special approval, please come forward, state your name and address, provide comment.
Hello, Steve Fry, 26781 Holly Hill Drive, which is right under that initial drive into the college there. First question is just actually to the council, why didn't you ask any questions about the environmental concerns of this project? Are there any, how would that affect the well water in the area? That whole neighborhood's on a well, and the air quality for our children playing outside.
Aren't you getting water right now? Aren't they installing water mains?
Sorry?
In Holly Hill, aren't they installing water mains right now?
Not for me, I don't know.
Not for you?
Joe.
It's my understanding that all of the environmental permitting is being handled by the state. It was in the materials we were given that all that permitting is handled by the state, so it's really not something that we address.
But certainly.
But
your comment-
air quality and.
Yeah, certainly your comment about.
We don't have that
the
expertise.
Environmental issues, that's appropriate, and certainly if there are questions, we'll ask
Sure.
people to address them, we appreciate them.
Sure, yeah, I was wondering why you guys, so if the state said, but I still then ask,
Yeah.
do we have concerns about that? Because I sure do.
Okay.
And how can we ensure that that's going to be safe in the short and long term for our neighborhood?
I made note of the question, we're going to ask the proponent to talk
Okay.
about that, about the air quality, air and water runoff, whatever, associated with the batch plant. Barry.
Okay.
All right, in the past, when we had requests to have batch plants in other areas of Farmington Hills, there's always been a misconception that this is not a cement plant. This is not it's a concrete plant. They're not making cement on the site. They're bringing cement to the site, and they mix it with other materials to make concrete for the highway. So you'd be absolutely correct in being upset if they were actually making cement on the site, because that does cause problems. But they're not making cement on the site. They're bringing it in, and usually it comes in those towers. It's encapsulated into tanks and things like that, so they're not going to be piling piles of cement so the wind can blow it into your neighborhood. And again, they're not making cement there because the exhaust on the cement factories is pretty bad. So that's shouldn't be a concern. They are going to be using cement as a part of the mixing process, and this is just a mixing plant. They're not making cement, they're making concrete, and they're mixing cement into the material to make the concrete, but they're not producing cement on the site. So if that was what your concern is, we've never had that problem in the past. And we had 2 cement batch plants going this summer, one for Orchard Lake Road and one to do a subdivision. And once they got up and running, no one ever had a complaint about them. And the other people that have had these, and it's not these folks, but other people that have had these cement batch plants, they stuck to their hours. They weren't as noisy as people thought they would be. And one of the cement plant one of the mixing plants is near where I live, about a half mile away, and never heard of it.
Well, that's a half a mile. I'm about 500 feet, so. And
You're a lot
I'm
closer.
concerned about the crushing of the concrete and the dust in the air and the wind that comes right towards our neighborhood in that stream. So the concrete crushing, it says it's crushing it right there.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, because we didn't have cement concrete crushing going on in the two batch plants that were up this summer. But I can tell you the other people that were near the one on Northwestern were closer than 500 feet. And I never got any complaints from them about the noise. But again, they weren't crushing cement. They were all, as far as I know, they brought all the materials brought to the site and mixed there and then carted off.
Thank you, Barry. Any other comments regarding to the batch plant, sir?
No, I just like to understand how we're just protecting our neighborhood with the air and water.
We're going to ask the proponent to come up. I'll have a few questions for him as relates to your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, Steve, last name is Fry, F-R-E.
F-R-E-Y?
Yeah, thanks.
Would anybody else from the public like to come up and speak on this item? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. We could ask the proponent to come back up, and we could talk a little bit about the issue of dust and noise and runoff, and what type of permitting have you received, and what will you do given that we have kind of neighbors close by
Right.
in your operation?
So with the concrete crushing plant specifically, each time they set up, they are recorded with Eagle. They do have to have an Eagle permit. They do an air quality review. They actually come out and watch the plant in action. Every time we set this plant up, this happens. They monitor the air quality. They observe dust. They make sure that our practices are in place for dust control, and that's how they expect that plant to operate.
Is that ongoing monitoring, or is that just one time when you set up?
That's a one-time certification, but it's with the state and Eagle, so they can come out at any time and inspect that plant, and they expect it to be running as they approved it.
Okay.
Part of the Eagle permit is also a study of the site, its close proximity to the waterways. There's parameters for what, runoff is acceptable, not acceptable, and what, the repercussions are if those are violated. But that is all permitted through Eagle.
So you'll probably have some grading to set up your plant. There'll be
Correct.
some grading, and will there be soil erosion measures put up in place? And
Yeah, absolutely. Once we know if we can move forward, we have to go get I think it's City of Farmington Hills, actually. I don't think Oakland County does a soil erosion permit for there. But we'll have to have a soil erosion permit in place, all the soil erosion measures in place. and then we'll move forward with the permitting of the site through Eagle.
What kind of noise would the neighbors anticipate with a crusher?
There's actually a noise pollution survey that has to be performed too when the crusher's set up. I believe the information is in the packet on what decibels are normally recorded, but all of that has to be on file and verified. They're not allowed to set up a crusher, I believe, within 500 feet of a residence. I think that's one of the parameters that, you know, the state looks for.
You're real close. You're close to 500.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 Thank you. Joe, question for the proponent?
You are correct to get the soil erosion permit from the city. But if we're going to repair the roads, we need a facility like this to do it. Is this the best location?
For this project, it is.
That's what I mean. Where's the next best location? Can you think of?
The next best location's putting it on a semi-truck and sending it out on the road with the motoring public, 7,000 truckloads just
Right.
for next year.
Right. Thank you.
One more thing, if you don't mind.
Please.
The college was very concerned with noise and dust. That's the business they're in. They expect students to be able to go there and study. They didn't not want this to be a disruption to their daily business. I took the college to tour one of these sites on another one of our projects. Spent a few hours there. They observed the dust, they observed the noise, they watched the activities go around, and they're still electing to move forward with this. They don't feel that this is going to impact them at all, so.
So how do you handle the dust?
Water,
Do you use water spray?
yep, they'll have water at the site to spray the raw piles and the crush piles, and then we maintain with water daily, all day long throughout the site.
What would be like a typical day of activity there? I mean, in terms of the cadence of the work that the neighbors would expect to see?
As far as the activity with the, I mean, it'd
Trips?
be the trucks coming in and dumping and, you know, equipment piling and, you know, a loader on site all day, you know, loading the crusher and maintaining stockpiles, then trucks hauling material back out.
Do you know offhand how many decibels you're talking about for the crusher?
I don't know for sure. I want to say that there was a sample permit in the packet, and I think they had some readings in there.
There was a sample permit in the packet.
Joe, could you?
There was a sample permit in the packet, yeah.
Thank you.
Can you just tell us what the decibel rate is they're talking about? Because I don't remember seeing it. That's. Eric's looking.
If I'm not mistaken, we do have a noise ordinance.
Yes.
And in granting this permit, if they were to exceed the noise ordinances, it wouldn't matter that they had a permit, they would not be able to exceed those noise limits. Is that not true?
Yeah, this approval wouldn't constitute any kind of waiver of the noise ordinance.
Right.
Marissa?
You mentioned that you took the OCC staff to a couple of your other sites. Were any of those sites in as close proximity to also residential areas like this one?
The site I took them to was at, off our 275 project. I wouldn't say it was a residential area, but there were two hotels that were within 500 to 1,000 feet away from the crusher site.
Did the hotels then have any response in terms of dust or being able to
We haven't had any complaints.
keep
to
their
my
glass
knowledge.
clean? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for the proponent?
I have a comment.
Yeah, question.
Just a couple positive comments. I would say that, you know, when it comes to doing this kind of work, I think that this company's probably in the top notch of doing things right and by the book and that sort of thing. So I think that I have confidence in who's doing this work. And it is a high-profile project, so it will be looked after intently by Eagle and MDOT. So again, I think things are going to be done right. And then I really, like you stressed, the ingress egress from the ramp, I think is a key point in keeping your trucks and all that weight off of our roads. And it's just, that's a positive.
Thank you.
See no other questions. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Been very informative, and we appreciate the comments from our residents and issues they're dealing with as well, or anticipate dealing with. Back to the commission. Barry.
Well, I can make a motion.
Barry, you're going to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that the special approval 61-10 2022 submitted by Connor Lennington of Dan's Excavating Inc. be approved, subject to all applicable provisions of the zoning chapter for the following reasons. The use would not be injurious to the district and environs. The effect of the use would not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the zoning chapter. The use would be compatible with existing uses in the area. The use will not interfere with orderly development of the area. The use will not be detrimental to the safety or convenience of vehicular or pedestrian traffic. That the approval be for the period of January 1st, 2023 to January 1st, 2024. That the use of the plant be between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday. That the noise levels will not exceed those allowed by city ordinance, and that the nothing on the site will exceed 75 feet in height, which includes the tower, the crusher, and the materials that are being stored, and that at the end of this use permit, that the everything will be all materials will be removed from the site, all equipment will be removed to the site, from the site by January 1st, 2024.
And property restored, seeded?
The property be restored to its original condition and seeded for grass.
Okay, Barry, got a motion. John's support. Any discussion on the motion? Joe?
Obviously, they may not be able to reseed it if they finish in November
Yeah.
until the following
The
year.
intent is to come
I
back.
was just clarifying that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. Any other comments? I'll call the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Good luck. Keep your neighbors happy, okay? Terrible. Thank you.
This is the letter. Yeah, you. Where it says when. You need to contact him.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. The next public hearing item is zoning text amendment 1, 2022. Chapter of the code is 34, which is the zoning ordinance. Proposed amendment is to amend the time period that recreational equipment or trailers may be parked on a residential premises during loading or unloading. Our actions tonight are a recommendation to City Council. The specific sections of the zoning ordinance are 34-5.7.1 and 34-5.7.4. Before the public hearing, we'll go to staff, and if you could introduce this amendment, and then we'll entertain questions from the commission.
So yeah, we have zoning text amendment 1, 2022 before you tonight for consideration. The draft amendment was first introduced to the commission back in the September meeting and was set for a public hearing to a date uncertain at that time. Staff is essentially requesting tonight that a public hearing be held on the item, followed by some consideration as to whether to recommend adoption of the draft amendment to City Council. The text of the draft amendment has not changed since the September meeting, as no changes were requested at that time. It has been reviewed by the city attorney's office. To summarize the purpose, once again, of the draft amendment, we're basically seeking to change the time period during which recreational equipment may be parked anywhere on a residential lot for loading and unloading from what is currently an open-ended 24-hour period to 72 hours within a 5-day period, which brings us into line with the requirements of similar communities. As I kind of explained at the September meeting, the reasonableness of the 24-hour limit was called into question, and upon researching the issue, staff found no other instances of 24-hour limits locally, and that the norm that emerged was 72 hours. So that's a bit about, by way of summary. I'd be glad to answer any questions to the best of my ability. Once again, the action requested is to hold the public hearing and consider whether to recommend the amendment to City Council.
Thank you, Eric. Questions for Eric? So I guess what we found was, from a practical standpoint, 24 hours is not too practical, but 72 seems to be practical, and that's what other communities allow their residents the time to unload or load.
Yep.
It's okay.
That's certainly the pattern that emerged in our look at what other communities were doing. Yeah.
Okay, certainly we want to set expectations that are reasonable, and that we find that that's what people generally do. Okay, hearing no questions, thanks for the presentation. We'll open up the public hearing. Anybody interested in speaking on this item, please come forward. Do we have a resident here who'd like to speak? Your name and address, please.
I am Cindy Lukács, 35263 Edith Drive.
Welcome.
Thank you. I was here in September with my husband. He's hunting, so he's not here today. But we just want to, again, show our support for this change of the ordinance. 24 hours is too short of a time. 72 would be very beneficial.
So 72 would be plenty, and that's pretty reasonable in terms of loading and offloading.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, if we could do a week, that would be better, but let's get at least this much done.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? Thank you very much. Thanks for
All right,
coming.
thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other ones wanting to speak on this issue, I'll close the public hearing. Back to the commission. What would you like to do? Motion?
Motion.
Motion? Yes, John, you want to make a motion?
I move to recommend the approval to City Council of zoning text amendment 1 to 2022, which proposes to amend Chapter 34 zoning, Article 5.0, site standards, Section 5.7, recreational equipment or trailers, to revise the time period during the recreational equipment or trailers may be parked in a residential district for loading, unloading, and maintenance.
Second.
Second by Steve. John moved it. Second by Steve. Any questions, comments, or discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. So this will go now on to the city council. We have a date for city council or sometime in the future?
We believe it would be on the first City Council agenda in January.
Okay, and this will be a public hearing item, right? So people will
Yes.
be notified.
Yep, it will be a public hearing.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, that concludes our public hearings for tonight. The next item is approval of our September 15, 2022 special and regular meeting minutes. Any questions on the minutes for Cheryl? Or everything look good?
I have a question.
Marissa?
Can I submit the minutes if I wasn't here?
Oh, you,
Okay. Thank you.
any other questions? We have a motion.
Are we doing both of them, the 6 p.m.?
You want to do both of them? I think we can do both of them, can't we? Or do you want? Sure, why not? Motion over on this side? Want somebody to make a motion?
Can do it.
Chris,
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
for the minutes of September 15th, 20,
September 15th, 2022,
the special and the regular.
special and the regular.
Cool, thank you very much. Support. John supports. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Seeing no public out there, there's no public comments, so we'll move on to commissioner comments. Start down here with Joe.
Thank you for moving this meeting right along, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You up? Barry.
Wish everyone have a happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much turkey because you'll fall asleep.
I've said enough tonight.
Said a lot, it was all valuable. Thank you, John. I'm all set. Marissa?
Good.
Good, good. Danielle, good. Steve, good. Good. Okay, I think we're good. Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn?
Steve, John, Steve's got the motion, John supports, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays don't have it. We're